Okay, so I'm gonna take, if you guys remember my fancy little animated 1 hour clip. So I'm gonna take this one because I didn't have time to create anything else. It's basically very similar to what you've been doing for the last 3 weeks. So I'm gonna take this one, polish it up a little bit on a layer, add prop, add some lights, and add some maybe VFX to it. Okay, and then render out. Hopefully it will be done in an hour or an hour and a half, and then the rest of the class I'll just go around and check your assignments. Okay, so first thing, obviously right now we're in story mode, so what we have to do is bake this motion on the control link, because if you click story mode off, everything is in T-pose, right? So first thing, the best way to do this is to plot or bake each character separately, because there is a shortcut button you can bake everything, but what happens is it's gonna bake the cameras as well. So you're gonna have a key on every frame on the cameras. So the best way, you select Argor, the first character, and you go animation and key controls, animation, plot selected. Make sure you're in full body, because if you're in just body part, it probably won't bake all the limbs, so you need to be in full body. So first thing, for full body, key control, animation, plot select. It will take a while depending how many frames you have. Switch to the alien. Yeah, I know sometimes we'll fix that later. We'll fix that. Sometimes the IK stuff is turned off. So at the minimum there should be IK on the feet and the pelvis. So the pelvis and the 2 feet should be green. That's at a minimum. If you have hand contacts and stuff like that, I would turn on the hands as well to green. But in this case, there's no hand contact, so it should be okay. So switch to alien, do the same thing, key control, plot selected. It takes a little bit less time because he doesn't have that many clips, so it's a bit shorter. So now, if we turn off story, there's no more T-pose. Because what happens is all those motions are on the control rig right now. So it's ready to be, to be worked on. You can delete keys, you can edit on layers, anything you fancy. So what I'm going to do is to have backups. I'm going to save this as 3_edit, because this way I have the file with all the story clips separate and the edit file is separate. So this way, it's like the incremental backup thing. It's always better to do it like this. Okay. And sort of another backup, if you want, I'm going to duplicate this take. So at least I have a backup inside the file. So what happens is if I go in here, the take, create new, it will ask me, do you want to copy the data from the current take to the new take? I would click yes. So this way, let's say something happens, something goes wrong. Instead of reopening the file, you just switch back to take 1, and you have the original motion inside. Okay. So I'll be editing on take 2. So again, polish what's on camera, right? I don't need to tell you this. So whatever you see on camera, you need to polish. So first thing we see here, there's some feet sliding here in this shot. It's super quick. That's one of the ones I would let go. I'm not going to comment or grade you on this. But since I want to show you how to fix the feet, I'll show you how to fix the feet on this shot. Okay? You see the right foot? Right foot is sliding. So what I want to do is I keep my camera. I keep the two viewports, one for camera switcher and one for perspective, and I edit everything in perspective. So right now the right foot is not in IK, so I need to turn it to IK. And then if you see here, I don't see the keys, so that's kind of a problem. So what I need to do is I zoom in with the segment so I can see the keys. So if I scrub now, you will see that it slides sideways. Okay? You don't see it this way, but it slides in. So we just need to fix those contacts. So what the best way to do this is, first thing we can do, if you go into because you want to fix the foot on the ball of the on the ball of the foot, so like right here. So you need the toe pivot to be in IK as well, because if you use the ankle, it will actually, I'm going to show you what it looks like. If I use the ankle to fix the feet, it's kind of jiggle too much. So let's just do it so you can see the effect. So I want it to stay from here, or let's say here. Okay, so we didn't talk about frame rate. So right now, as you see, the keys are not right on the frames. Okay, so if you when you bake here, you're plotting at 30 frames per second, but your frame rate is at 24. You're going to end up with keys in between. So the way to fix this is just convert to 30. Okay? So now, see, when you move frame by frame, the keys are exactly on the frame. So that's the reason why the keys are in between the frames. Because when you bake, you can actually plot on 24, so you don't have to stick to 30. But by default, when you plot, it will plot at 30. So if you see these keys between frames, just switch the FPS to 30 frames per second. The rendering will update. You don't have to fix anything in the render box afterwards. So I want the foot to be fixed right here, starting, let's say, right here up to here. So one way to do this is you select these keys. You go in body part because you don't want to work in full body. You just want to, right now, you just want to fix the feet. So you switch to body part, okay? So you select those keys that are stationary, right? The contact. So it's probably is better. Oops. So this is the first contact. So you want to start the next three, these ones. Okay. So you want these three to match the position of this key. So you select those keys, you right click, and you go copy previous key on selected IGA objects. So what that will do is it will take the position from frame 42, the previous one. So I'll show you exactly what it does. So you have options here. You can either copy translation and rotation, translation or rotation. So in this case, I just want to copy the translation. Okay, so see what happens. So those three keys that I just told to follow frame 42 or 41, I should say, it's 41, are in the same position. But what happens is the feet sink through the ground because the ankle position was, how can I say, it's not actually contact with the floor. Okay, so I'm going to undo this and try to use the toe. But the toe now is in FK, so I need to switch that to IK as well. And we're doing something weird. What's going on there? Sometimes it messes up, so you might have to go to the first frame and see if it's better. Yeah. So if you switch if you're trying to switch to IK and it messes up, it tries to go somewhere in space, just go to the first frame and switch the toe on the first frame. Okay, so now it's correct. I think it was this. Yeah, this one. So now if you look, I want to show you the difference between the pivot of the bone. See, this is the toe bone and this is the ankle bone. Okay. When you tell it to match this bone is closer to the ground. So it's not going to sink in the ground like the one we did before on the ankle bone, right? So that's the difference I wanted to show you. Always pick the bone that's closer to the contact, basically, if it makes sense. So it was, I believe, 41, right? So 42, 43, and 44. I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, copy a previous key, which is 41, to those three keys I just selected. Okay? So now what happens is, look at that beauty. See, it's fixed with the position of frame 41. And all you need to do now is fix the blending on this, because now this frame pops, I'm sure. Yeah, it goes because it was using the previous, not the previous, it's still keeping the previous translation, but you need to blend into it. So you need to delete at least two keys to blend with the new contact position from 44. So what I would do in this case, I would just delete these two keys. On body part, just delete those two keys. So you will get a smoother takeoff because it's going from here, blending into here. Okay? So that's the easiest way to fix feet sliding. I think it's doing it on the other foot. I'm not gonna do it on the other foot because it's pretty much the same technique. I'm just gonna play it to see if the hips are okay. Okay, so that's how to fix feet sliding. Now, if you look at this shot, I'm gonna move my time to this shot. You see a big pop on the body. This is because the loop, some of you are experiencing some of the loops that you've chosen. When you try to loop it in story mode, the first and last frame are not the same, so you get this weird pop. So you could see it if you look in story. So this is the last frame, it ends, and then when it starts again, it has this big jerk. This is because the first and last pose of that animation are not the same. So It tries to blend, but it doesn't work because it's not the same. So what we need to do is, ideally you would fix that in Story by choosing an animation where the first and last frame are the same, first and last pose are the same. But if you're very far ahead, you don't want to change it in Story, you can clean it up in outside of Story, basically. So all we want to do is edit this pose, okay? So to zoom in on the perspective, I just select all the controllers for Aragorn. That's the quickest way. And I press F. And I'm going to hide my layout because I don't see the side of the character. I can do this basically. So you see it's going from, yeah, so that's the problem. The first and last pose are not the same. So that's a big change because I probably did it super fast, because see the poses don't even match. So we would need to go, probably the best way to fix this is with a camera cut. So I would probably hide it as much as possible with a camera cut. But in this case, I'm going to try to fix it by trying to smooth out the motion. So maybe we can delete 2 full body keys and it will blend smoother. So I'm going to try that. So it starts, this frame is okay, this frame is okay. Here starts bug out. So I'll go on full body and just try to delete this key. And maybe 2 keys. Let's see how it looks. Yeah. It's not that great. So maybe we can move this key here, see what that looks like. So you see there's a big, sharp velocity increase. Yeah, so stuff like this we should have fixed in Story, ideally, because it's easier to manage. But, I mean, that's one way to fix it. See if I can. Maybe try one more key, but I think it's going to work. You can try shifting. We can try shifting the keys a little bit. Let's say here we can have an idle here. I'm going to try something to see if it's going to work. So up until here, he stops and idles here, right? So you can take all those keys and shift them back, because you have a couple of frames you can idle in there before he looks around. So the idea is you shift these keys backwards to make it blend better with the run. So let's try it. Let's give it a shot. Make sure you're in full body, because I don't want to mess with the camera. The camera is done. I want to try to solve this by just shifting the keys backwards. Oof. Okay. So now he's sort of idling here, but let's see what it looks like here. Okay, so now there's a big jump here. but I think the poses will match, see? So all we need to do is fix the displacement. And where do we do this? On a layer. Okay? So I'm going to create a layer here. So these frames here are okay, up to 85. So I'm going to add a key here. Key, full body, because I don't want to touch this key and before. I don't want to touch them. Okay? So add a key here. And then the next one, I'm going to move back this key to match the position of the previous pose. Okay? So you can either move it back manually. The way to move it back manually to get rid of the locked feet is, let me see if this works. Yeah, it does work. So by default, this button, if you remember in the beginning, couple of classes, we used it. You can, if the feet are locked, are pinned, you can release the pinning with one button. So if you click on this one, select the hips, make sure you're in full body, and move it back, then the feet are released from the pinning. So you can, that's the way to do it. So you can either eyeball it, or I'll show you another way. If you, is it going to work? If you copy, paste the pose, might not work. No, the pose thing is not going to work because it's, yeah, it's different. No, it's not going to work. So best way to do this is go in top view, and maybe just eyeball it from top view, because that's the best way to. Yeah.
How do you select the characters so that you could make the thing not so well? You know how you said, like, because now if I turn off story mode, like character goes to people.
Yeah.
So the way to take it so you can do that. But how do you select?
You can also use trajectory. So if you want to turn on the trajectory of the character, you can sort of see where it should go, basically. So it's getting better. It's actually not bad. So let's see how it looks in perspective. It still pops forward though, so we can fix that maybe. Let's say we move that key a little bit, see a little bit forward, see what that gives. No. Probably need to fix the upper body a little bit because it doesn't match the previous. So what we could do here, we can create another pose here and go in body part, select the spine, and try to delete this key. We're only deleting a key on the spine, okay? Yeah, it still bugs out a little bit. Now, if you want to see what's on the base layer, you can just mute the layer and see what's going on there. Select this. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm going to delete that key because it didn't help. So what we can do, we can probably just fix the upper body on this layer. So if you go here, just make that, try to delete this. No? Okay. You can try to fix it by hand. Is it key? Yeah, it's a bit smoother. So basically, I took this key and I made it more upright, so you don't have that big snap on the next pose. Because the change was mostly on the upper body, right? Maybe now it's doing it on the arms a little bit, so we can tweak the arms as well. Anyway, small pops like this, it's not a big, huge deal. But let's see how it looks with the camera. That's much better than before, right? Because if you look at the original, you could see the big difference, right? It's much smoother. Okay, so that's how you fix these big body jerks. The next thing is the fingers. Okay, so actually I'm gonna add this to the list. So big pet peeve of mine is don't keep the fingers like this, please. All it needs is one relaxed pose on one layer to make it more natural. Because if you give me this, you're gonna get in trouble. So no mitten. I don't know if this is the right. No mitten fingers. So the easiest way to fix this is you create another layer. So let's say you can rename the layers, or you can keep working on the same layer. It's up to you. But if you have a lot of layers, it might get confusing a little bit. So I'm just going to fix it on the same layer using the finger joints. Okay. So I go to the first frame. See, there is a key actually here because we set a full body key. You can actually go to this key and fix it too as well. Actually, no, let's do it on the first key. And then we can delete those keys because we switched the body part. You key it on the first frame and then you delete those keys. But it's not going to delete your full body key. It's only going to delete the body part of the finger, the key on the fingers. Okay? Don't think that it's going to delete the whole body, the key on the whole body. Okay? So I'm going to switch to local because you don't want to rotate the finger joints in global because you want to rotate with the orientation of the bone. because I'll show you the difference. So if you're in global, that's how you're going to rotate the fingers. Okay? But if you switch to local, see, the pivot is aligned with the rotation of the bones. See? So it's more natural. You're just doing this like this. So
for each motion, you need to.
Each motion, each finger.
No, like if you see on the factory tracks, you have different motions. And for the hand, you need to do for each, right? That we add.
I'm not sure I understand. Like for each character, you're talking about the finger specific?
Yeah.
Each character, you need to adjust one pose. I'm only requesting one pose. Unless you have something animated contacts, he's grabbing something in a close-up, then you need to animate the whole thing. You know, like it's better. Like you only need a couple of poses. But in this case, he's running. You only need one pose, which is on the first frame. Just one natural pose. That's all I'm asking for. So something like this. You can rotate all of them at the same time, and then pick one to offset it to make it a little bit natural. Do the thumb as well. You can even, I'm going to show you how to copy paste this pose on the other arm. If you remember a while ago, we used the pose control. So now if you copy this pose, the pose that you just created is full body. Okay? But how you paste it, you can either paste it in full body or body part. Okay, so you're already in body part. So we select the other finger. We click mirror on in the pose control. There's a mirror option. You click on mirror and you paste that pose that you just created. So technically you only need one pose on one hand, on one finger, and then you copy paste it on the other hand, the opposite finger. Okay, so now what happens is if you play, oh shit, okay, so we didn't do it on the first frame. We did it at frame 65 because that was my frame range, but it's okay. I mean, you can still move this one to frame 0. It's not a big deal. But what happens now is if you advance to this pose or this frame, undo. No. Did I mess up my camera switcher? Yeah. So be careful with the camera switcher. It's not supposed to happen, this one. It's weird. I think I might have just offsetted the camera. Yeah. So, is it this one? Yeah. So I'll have to move this camera back. Let me see. Yeah, that's okay. It's close enough. So now if you advance in this, I'm gonna select back my fingers. So now the fingers are back. Why? Because those mitten fingers are back. Because before, remember, we created a full body. The full body key had that mitten fingers in there. So on body part, we need to delete those two keys so that it takes the rotation from this key. So you need to delete these ones. So select the fingers, delete, select the other hand, and delete those keys as well. So the fingers are good now, and we still have the full body pose. So you didn't delete the full body pose. You just deleted the keys on the fingers. Okay? So I showed you how to use IK on the feet, how to clean up on a layer, how to add fingers. I want to show you now props. Yeah. So I thought about this guy. So I'm going to add like some sort of sword on Aragorn so that he picks it up when the alien comes down. Okay. Because the alien doesn't need a prop, so I'm gonna add like a cube, a long cube, and then just attach it to his back, and then when he turns around on a layer, I'm gonna animate him pulling out the sword. Okay. So I don't think I have any swords or anything like that. Sample props. Grenade lamp mask. Nope. There's a guitar. Could be funny. Pulls out a guitar. You want a guitar? I'll add the guitar. Yeah, why not? So I'm gonna save. Because I think the guitar comes in with the notes already. So let's see. Merge, no animation. Where does it go? It's right there. It's huge. Okay, so the guitar. Does it have a node? Let's see. Okay, it does have. Okay. So if you're planning to merge in a prop, do it the proper way. So you have the mesh and do a node. Let's see, I think we need to make this bigger so you can see it. So the proper way to do props is you have the mesh and you have a node that's driving the mesh, basically a child-parent relationship. Okay, because you don't want to link the mesh to the hand or to the character, because if you decide to change the mesh, your animation is lost. You can't save them. You can't save the animation and reload it on your new. Let's say you change the guitar to something. You change the dimensions. You change the scale. So the reason to do a node is you can animate the node and save the animation on the node and load it on the new prop. So always think of the mesh is separate, and then the node is the one that you animate with. Okay, so never attach the mesh itself to the character. Always create. I'll show you a quick example. So let's say you have elements cube. So let's say you have a stick. Obviously, the pivot point is in a weird spot. So don't attach this stick right to the character. Create a node, a null. Place it where you want to control the stick. So let's say at the bottom of the stick. And then take the stick hold Alt down or X if you're using Maya, and click and drag to that null. And you will get a little window. You just parent it. Okay? So now the null is driving the mesh or whatever prop you have. Okay? So this will be for like long term. Let's say if you already animated the cars, and what some of you have cars, you already animated the mesh, it's fine. You don't have to redo it. I'm not gonna mark you on this, but keep it in mind for second year and third year. Don't do props like do it like this. It's better, because then if you do a mistake on the mesh, you have to update the mesh. You don't want to lose the animation. You load the animation on the null. Everything's good. Okay, so I'm going to take the guitar, go to the first frame, send it to Aragor. Wow, it's huge. Okay, so this is another reason why you need a null, because you can go like this. Try this guitar is in like 5 pieces. I don't know how you would have to scale each piece separately. So another reason, you can scale down and you can adjust the null. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach this to his back. So he's a Mexican Aragor or something. I don't know. Sorry, that was a bad joke. And I'm going to attach it, rotate it, put it on his back. And what we use for attaching props is, okay, so let's say you just want the prop attached. Let's say he's wearing a hat or something. The simplest way is you select the node and you hold Alt the same way as I did before with the stick. Hold Alt and drag to one of the bones that you want to parent to. And then you parent. So when you parent, it's following it at 100%. Okay? But in this case, what we want to do is we want to animate the attachment. So it's on his back for a while, and then once he stops and turns around, we want that same prop to detach from the spine and attach to his hand. So you're animating that constraint. You're animating the switch, basically. Switching from spine to hand. So the way to do this in Motionbuilder is you go in Asset Browser, Constraints. There's something in here called multi-referential. So you'll need to drag this to the viewport. And then you go in Navigator, Constraints. Oh, geez. And you'll see it at the bottom. It just adds it to the bottom of the folder. If you don't see it, just double click on it. So rigid body means it's what is the child, basically. So you have the parent object, which is going to be the spine or the hand later. And the child is basically the null of the guitar. Okay? So you select the null of the guitar, you hold Alt the same way, click and drag to rigid body. So right now we want to attach it to the spine bone, the spine effector, this one. Okay? So you select it and do the same thing. Hold Alt or X and you drag to the parent bone. to the parent section. So now what do we have? Oh, it's not following. What's going on? Because it is not activated yet. Be careful with this. Only use snap. Okay? Because if you by mistake click on 0 and you already adjusted the position to be nice and fixed on his back, if you click it on 0 by mistake, it will align. Can you undo? I'm going to show you what it does. So if you click on 0, what? It's supposed to it's supposed to lock it. Oh, I know why. I know why. Okay. So when you add a multi-ref to a child, which is the null of the guitar, in key controls over here, it will have basically, you'll see here something called ref. So it's the multi-ref. You will have a list of things that it's supposed to be parent to. Okay? So in here, right now, the guitar is following itself. So you can animate the guitar, the character can move, nothing can happen. Okay? But if you drop down the list, you will see the chest effector, the one we chose earlier, right? In the parent object section. So what you need to do is you need to, if you want at that frame, the null guitar to be attached to the spine, you need to actually select it, right? So now if you see, it created a key on that guitar null, okay? So that's the key, the switch key. So if you right click on it and do info, there's no info. Oh, key info. You will see it's following the chest, okay? So that's how you switch parents, basically. And in the key control, ref, so now it's following all through the animation. Okay, and then the alien drops. So at here, I want to animate his arm reaching for the guitar to pick it up, okay? So he turns around. So maybe as he's turning around, he reaches for the guitar. So it's the right arm, yeah. So I don't want to animate all the body, so I'm going to switch to body part. And I'm going to zoom in here. So I only work on the selected frames. So in here, I don't want to move the arm, so I'm just going to put a key here and start maybe lifting. So frame 376. So it's about maybe close to a second that you want to reach to the, maybe a bit less than a second, maybe half a second. So if you want, add 15 more frames. So 376 plus 15, 390, roughly. So I'm going to raise his arm. Clavicles too. The mesh on this guy is not the best, so excuse the bad deformation. So I can pin the arm down and then move the elbow a little bit downwards, so it looks like he's reaching. Can I move it down more? Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna look broken. I think at this stage we can you can animate. If you want to take it a step further, you can help the reach by animating the knob. I'm not gonna go through it though. It's a bit too complicated, but you can actually animate the null of the guitar to help the reach of the hand, because you can sort of cheat it, right? Or you can actually bend the chest a little bit down so that the guitar bends a little bit. There's different ways to help the reach, but I'm not gonna go through it too much. Okay, so let's say picks it up like this, grabs it here. I'm gonna put a key here. I'll try to fix the shoulder. Yeah, it's not the best one to do arm fixes. Let me see if I can maybe fix the. I'm gonna lock the rotation on the hand because I want it fixed on the guitar. Try to fix maybe the elbow. It's not the best one. It's okay. You get the idea. It's a little bit broken. I'm just gonna show you how to attach it to the hand now. Okay. So at this frame, what do we got so far? Ooh, it's going backwards. Look at that. So let me see if I can fix this. So in here, you want it to go right forward. So right now, there's pinning on the rotation. I can release it quickly to make him go forward. It might do a. Let's see what that gives us. Oh yeah, it's doing the 180. Okay. Obviously, this needs a bit more time. So, but I wonder if I can fix it super quick. I think if I try to go like this, no, it still does it. Anyways, you might, yeah, it would have been better if there's a key in the middle, and it's not going back too much, because what happens, it's going. If I switch to linear, does it help? No. Okay. Anyways, you get the idea. If you go back too much, you're gonna need an in-between key, but I'm not gonna spend too much time on it because I'm just showing you the prop, how to fix the prop. So right now we only, if we go back on the multi-ref, we only have the chest as parent, so we need to add the right hand as parent. Okay. So it's the same process. Hold down Alt, move it down, and then if you select the guitar null, you will have right hand here as well. Okay. So at this frame, you want to do the switch. So what do? Is you basically at this frame you switch to right hand. So everything behind that key will be driven by the chest, but everything after this key it's being driven by the right hand. So right hand stays up because it's taking the last position on the layer, so you want to drop it down. So if you go at 15 frames advance and you press the 0 key, it will go back to the original base layer, what's on the base layer. So if you mute, he's offsetted. I forgot to do that. He's offsetted because we shifted all the keys to fix the run. That's why he's offsetted. So be careful if you offset like I did today. Between the cuts, you might need to adjust what's on the base layer. Go back to the base layer. So if now on this layer we clicked on 0, but it only adjusted on because we're on body part, we only adjusted what's on the arm. Okay. It didn't adjust. Yeah, it's doing the same thing because it's too far back. Yeah. It only puts the key that's on the base layer. But if you switch to full body and you go 0 key, now it's exactly what's on the base layer. Okay. So just be careful with this. Oh. Did I mess it up? I'm just going to delete this key. Go back in body part and click on 0. And if you want to adjust this pose so that he's like more ready to fight with the guitar, you can adjust it. Maybe rotate it out like this. He's ready to smack him with the guitar. So what does that look like? Cool? Is it clear for the props? Pretty much straightforward. Multi-ref and add the child and the 2 parents. That's basically it. Okay, I'll give you a crash course on lights. So I'm going to add the layout. I'm not going to go too deep for the lights. Where's the lights? So in the navigator, if you go on lights, oh, there's a bunch already. Okay, I'm gonna delete these. Even this one. If we delete this one, what happens? Oh, you can't delete the global light. I think that's default by the scene. So right click on the light folder, insert light. By default it's point light, so you can go infinite. You have a bunch of options. I'm not sure what the difference is, but you can play around with it. The basics is, you need a filler light and a spotlight if you want to showcase something specific. Okay, so filler light. Do you guys take lighting classes yet? A little bit? Yeah? Okay. So here you can, you have your basics. You can change the color, intensity. If you insert another one for the spotlight, spotlight is a bit more interesting. So you have more, obviously more settings. You can animate the light. Also, something interesting is you can just like the camera, you can make it follow something specific. Okay, so you see in here, interest. Let's say you wanted to follow Aragorn. So you select the pelvis, hold Alt, click and drag to the interest section of the spotlight. So now what happens is it follows him, just like the camera interest. So it's kind of cool. You can add the light color, and you can add a texture. So in here, in media, those are the textures from the scene already. So like Aragorn's face, body, and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna try something with one of them. So see now it's projecting the that texture on the ground. It has a projection, texture projection. But the nice thing is you can take off that projection, draw ground projection, take it off. But what you will end up with is something like God rays. You know, it's like stretching the texture. So it's kind of nice if you want that effect. So if you see in the camera, see, so it's stretching the texture from the light. You just choose a texture from your scene in media here. So if you go in the spotlight, double click on it in media, just choose any texture and this take off the draw ground projection so it doesn't draw the texture on the ground. Okay. You can play with the cone. How big is it? And the fog intensity I don't recommend because I think it's like the intensity almost. Yeah. I'll let you guys play around with these. The one more interesting thing is you can have shadows too. But to activate the shadows, you need to add a shader. A shader, you have to assign it to the ground. So if you go in Asset Browser, Shading, open that up, Shaders, Reflection. So all you need to do is drag, no, that's Reflect. Is it Reflect? Live Shadow. Reflection is actually good for water, and you can, well, you'll see. I'll just add it. I'll add both and you'll see what the effect is. Live Shadow. Oh, okay. So I need to add it to the layout. So I need to make the layout pickable. Go back in Asset Browser, Live Shadow, and just drop it, and go replace by type. Ooh, what did it do? Oh yeah, there you go. So now it added a shader on the ground. So that's the live shadow. If you add the reflection, let's say you have an ice ground or a mirror, he's walking on mirror. Replace by type as well. It will reflect what's above that plane. I don't see a lot of you using this. I don't think there's a lot of need for this, but if you need it, it's there. Yeah. Yeah, that's different. If you want something transparent, it's actually, so let's say you want a ghosted Aragorn. The shader is called flat, this one. So if you drag, is he pickable? Okay, you need to make the mesh pickable. Go back and shaders and drag a flat shader to the mesh. Replace by type. And if you go in shaders now, in flat, you need to activate the transparency. By default, there's no transparency, so you need to say accurate transparency and then play with the values. So now you see he's a ghost. Change the intensity of the reflection. Let's check. Yeah, there is an intensity. Yeah. Yeah, so 0, there's no reflection. And it goes up to full reflection. Yeah. You can even, there's like 4 types of reflection. You can try them and see what comes out of it. Smoke, yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. So that's it for lights. I'm not going to go too far in it. I want to do lights before we break. Sorry, not lights, VFX. Okay, so VFX, it's going to be easier if I load an empty scene. Yeah, let me load, because there's too many things now in this scene. I'm going to load the run cycle and make like basically footsteps for splashes or something like that. Jog straight, let's try that. Open all. Okay, so I want to add, let's say I want to add splashes on the footsteps on these, okay? So the way VFX works in Motionbuilder, you need an object to spawn particles from, okay? So let's say I want to add 2 steps, one here, 2 splashes, one on this foot and one on this foot. You need to import or drag in 2 planes. Let's say 2 planes for now. Plane, too big, squeeze it down. The size of the object determines the size of the particles. So you want it to be flat on the ground. So I'll put the Y at 0. So in here, I'm just going to move it here. And then on the next one, splash in here. So you can duplicate the same plane, right click on it, duplicate, and just put it here. Okay. So now the particle is a particle shader. So you need to go back in shaders. Okay, it's called particle shader. No? It's called particle. Okay. So you just drag and drop to the plane, replace by type, and fire. So by default, it will spawn the effects from the vertices of that object. So if you have a cube there, it will spawn effects from each corner. So if you go in shader, particle, you change the emit from to scale volume. Now it scales from the center of the object. There is some presets already. I mean, you can use them or you can just create your own. So if you go in global control, There's rain, snow. We don't want that. And clouds. It's probably for the splashes. The cloud is the closest thing. So I'm going to use that. Wow, it's growing. I'm going to make it a bit smaller. And it's moving. So there's a lot of settings in here. Okay? I don't know all of them. Huh? You can change the color. It's in here, particle shading. So I don't know all of them. So you don't ask me ask me to show you the perfect setup. You have to play around with it. You can always go to F1 and look up what all of these settings do. But I would just focus on the top ones. The top ones are probably the most important. There's a lot of settings. You just play around with it. Eventually, you're going to get it. If you have time, I don't know all of them, so I'm not going to be able to answer you what's the perfect. So try the presets and try to play around with the presets. So in color, out color, you can change these. So let's say I want it blue because it's water. Ooh, looks like gas. Something like that. And quantity, I only need a small splash, so maybe, yeah. Size, maybe I can make it bigger. Yeah, you can spend hours trying to figure out what you need. That's why if you're good with Premiere, you're probably better off doing effects in Premiere and just composite it. But if you want to have fun in Motionbuilder, by all means. Lifetime. It's everything here is per second, I believe. So I want to say that's close enough. I don't want to spend an hour. I might change the out. Oh no. Yeah, just have fun with it. It's one of those things. You need to do a lot of trial and error back and forth. So so let's say you're happy. This is the effect that you want. You can copy this, duplicate, and then assign it to this one. You'll know in a second why. Because you don't want, let's say you want to match the splash on the footsteps. So you want it timed, okay? That's why you need two separate ones, because you want one to fire off at certain frame and the other one to fire off at a second frame, on another frame. So the way to do this is after you're happy with the look of the particles, I would actually name it properly. So maybe this one is 2. This one is 1. So in global control, this is where you have to tweak the timing or the trigger of the particle. So by default, it's always live. It's always playing on screen. It's not affected by the play. So even if you press play, it still does the same thing. It's like, think of it as its own thing playing in the background. It's not affected. So if you want to switch this to real time or play time, what you need to do is to be able to, okay, so you have live here, trigger. Don't worry about trigger. It's useless. It's used in something else. Repeat is, by default, it's -1. So it's repeating forever. That's why it's repeating, because it's at -1. Start delay is the one that you need to offset the second one and the first one to match the footsteps. Okay, so this one is per second. What's playing in the viewport? It's 30 frames per second. So you have to, if you don't want to do calculation, if you're in frames, you just switch your timeline to show as time code. Okay, so now it shows you the time code. So if you want to say to trigger this one here, it's at 0.9 seconds. Okay, or actually, yeah, 0.9. It's a little bit before contact. 1 frame before contact is better because it gives it enough time to trigger. So the first one, we switch to playtime, and we switch the start delay to 0.1, 0.09, sorry. And the repeat, you want it only to repeat once, not -1, because -1, it's forever, it repeats forever. So you're going to have to put 1 here. Okay, that's all you have to do. You can adjust the speed if you want it faster or slower, you can adjust it too, but you should do that in the particle physics. Okay, so we have to do the second one. So at 0.19, double click on the second one, switch it to playtime, 1, and delay is 0.19. Okay, so now let's see what it looks like. Yeah. So disclaimer, it only plays once because you only set it to play once. So if you want to adjust the timing, you have to go back to particle physics and adjust the lifetime or some of these settings to make it show and be gone the way you want it. But if you want it to play back again, you have to switch these to live. Okay, so also you switch it back to live, you need to bring that one back to -1 so you can see the effect. Okay, so once you're happy with this, you switch it back to playtime and you render. Supposed to render, so we're going to test it now to see if it renders properly. Playtime, render. I'm going to choose maybe VFX AVI or something like that. Render. Okay. So the first one, maybe did we set both at the same time? Possible. See what happened here. 0.9. Yeah, that's a bit strange. Maybe because it's a duplicate. Doesn't like duplicates. It's coming up at the same time for some reason. No. Seems to be playing back here correct. I have Premiere here. Okay. I'm gonna try a bigger offset on this to see if it makes a difference. So let's say 2 seconds or 1.5 and 1. Yeah. Put it back. If you want to render again, every time you want to render, you have to set it to -1 and then one back, because it has to reset the playback. So just if it doesn't render, make sure you reset it this way. So -1. It's not the best way of working with particles, but that's what we have to live with in Motionbuilder. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it works. So maybe the offset was too close, or the settings for the particles, the particle physics, it had too much lifetime. It was overlapping with the first one. It's possible. So that's pretty much it. So we covered light, how to do layers, fix the feet, poses, lights, and VFX. You guys want props as well? You want me to cover something else before we take a break? No, that's it. Okay. I'll put this